Good morning and welcome to Spartan Stadium in East Lansing, Michigan. Are we actually in Spartan Stadium in East Lansing, Michigan? Technically, no. We're in Michigan. That part was true. We're not quite at the stadium yet. We're not quite at Michigan State yet. We will be a little later on today, but we figured probably better to just do this at the Hotel Tony Gerdeman rather than get to East Lansing and figure out they don't have Wi-Fi here in the whole city or whatever other fun stuff you find on the first road game of the season.
Well, I think also Kevin can fix this in post.
Yeah, absolutely. Just put it like the Sparty statue right behind us.
So that I'm looking forward to that. See what other kind of shenanigans you can get us into with your Photoshop and editing skills.
Yes, so we'll see if we can edit Michigan State a competitive pass defense today. I'm not sure even Kevin's that good. It is shaping up to be a lovely day for a football game here in the state of Michigan. Right now, sort of partly cloudy. Right now, it's in the 30s. It will be up in the 50s when we get a little closer to game time. But no chance of rain, no crazy winds. Should be a game that is not really impacted too much by the weather, which is kind of what you want this time of year. That's about all you can ask,
especially on the road.
Well, you can also ask for a sweatshirt, hoodie weather, which it is. So not for Tony for some reason because he's not a believer in hoodies. I don't know. I mean,
I'm inside. My hoodie is literally right over there.
You not wearing a hoodie right now is the least Midwestern thing you've ever done.
Which was also my blanket last night, but we don't need to talk about that.
Well, let's talk about your sleep for a moment.
What about the availability report, Tom?
Oh, fine. I mean, I guess we'll leave to the stuff that doesn't matter as much, and then we'll get to the more important stuff later when we have a few more viewers. Let's pull up the availability report right now.
Sorry.
Let's. We're going to start with. We'll start with the big news of the day, which is, there are names we expected to see on here. Mayan Williams, not necessarily one we expected to see on here. No Mayan Williams today. I'll run through it real quick, and then we can kind of go name by name. No Mayan Williams, no Jackson Smith-Njigba, no Joe Royer, no Evan Pryor, no Taraja Mitchell, no Mitchell Melton, no Lloyd McFarquhar, no Jordan Hancock, no Tyler Friday, no Cam Babb, no Amari Abor, Enoch Vamahi, a game time decision. First of all, do you feel bad directly having caused the Mayan Williams injury by picking Travian Henderson to rush him by 25 yards this week? And then follow-up question, will you feel even worse when Travian Henderson rushes for exactly 24 yards today?
No, I won't. I don't feel bad about the first, and I won't feel bad about the second. I'd be irate about the second, and certainly would write a letter to my congressman. But Tom, maybe I shouldn't tell you this. Maybe I was aware that Mayan Williams was not going to play when I made that bold prediction of Travian Henderson out rushing Mayan by 25 yards. But it is something or somebody every single week that is like, wow, that's completely out of the blue. That didn't see that one coming. And, there were, it's just every week, Travian Henderson the week before. It's been amazing. And I think how much time do you ascribe to load management? How much do you ascribe to everybody's just getting hurt?
Yeah, I think you can ascribe a lot of it to load management because I feel like, we've said a couple times, if this week was Michigan week instead of Michigan State week, you're probably seeing Jackson Smith-Njigba. You might see Mayan Williams. But there's, so I think you can chalk a decent amount up to load management. Now, that being said, there's, guys being just sort of dinged up. It feels like more guys are dinged up this year than normal. You're never 100%. As soon as camp starts, as soon as the first day of camp happens, you're never 100%. So that's not anything new for a football player, but it feels like there are more injuries this year. At least maybe it's just that they're hitting certain position groups so much harder that makes it. If it was one offensive lineman and one defensive lineman and one linebacker and one running back and one wide receiver, that would feel different than like, boy, there's a lot of defensive backs out, or boy, there's a lot of wide receivers out or running backs out, or,
Is it all of the Oklahoma drills between the secondary and the running backs? Like maybe ease up on that sort of stuff and keep them healthy. But I also think with Ryan Day cannot say it's load management, like explicitly say that, because it's disrespectful to the opponent. It's like, yeah, we're not going to play Mayan Williams against Michigan State because we don't need to play Mayan Williams against Michigan State.
I mean, we can all read the standings, right? Like we can. They are Michigan State is 2-3. Am I correct about that? Yes, 2-3. Currently riding a 3-game losing streak. Am I correct about that?
Probably.
And the 3-game losing streak against Washington and Minnesota and Maryland, correct? Which is not exactly Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. I mean,
well, I'm just saying, like, you just don't come out and say it.
Yeah.
Because remember, Tom, Ryan Day said this is very much the same Michigan State team they saw last year.
That they beat by 49 points.
That was a top 10 Michigan State, top 11 Michigan State team that they saw last year. Very talented. I don't remember what the score was or what happened in that game. All I know is top 11.
Yeah, the only memorable part of a football game is the week leading up to the game. I found that for years. The only thing worth even thinking about. Yeah. So yes, we'll no Mayan Williams, no Jackson Smith-Njigba, and again, that's something that I think we anticipated, but it's still, I assume that this is just sort of playing it smart, playing it safe, and he can take this week off, take next week they've got the week off. And then you come back for Iowa. And, I think it's important to note there's no indication that this is something that's going to be longer term than that. All indications are that they're just sort of playing it sort of safe and, secure, trying not to push anything more than anything else would have.
Yeah. And this being like the game leading up to the bye week, it's another opportunity to get somebody like Mayan Williams, Jackson Smith-Njigba a week of rest. So that would tell me, like, then the guys not on the list are good to go. As look at Kirk Herbstreit's tie. That is completely Kansas Jayhawk tie. Anyway, sorry. I was just distracted by this complete homerism by Kirk Herbstreit.
What is he even on? This is the only live show going on right now.
Sorry, you're right. I must be watching something from the other day. But the what was I saying? I was so distracted. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the week off leading into the bye week. That's basically my statement.
All right, boy, you are on fire this morning.
Well,
less substantive than Desmond Howard. There it is, the most hurtful thing I've ever said. There you go. Now that's out there. Now you have to live with it. Something that I think is notable here is the guys who are not on the availability report.
That's what I was saying.
Well, you didn't get there, so now I got there for you. Denzel Burke, we saw him play last week with the one hand. He's going to be out there. Cam Brown. He's apparently, presumably, if this is to be taken at face value, going to be out there. So you're now assuming, according to this, you've got at least 4 healthy corners. Still no Jordan Hancock, but 5 if you include Ryan Turner, who's kind of played only sparingly. But you have Denzel Burke, you have Cam Brown, you have J.K. Johnson, you have Jair Brown. That's the healthiest this quarterback room has been all season. And for a team, if you're assuming that they really are just sort of being cautious with the guys, that to me suggests the guys who are not on that availability report are people who are presumably, again, if this is to be taken at face value, basically 100% right now.
Yes, if you take it at face value, that's the problem, though. You could hold you could sell squares for players not on the availability list who won't play something came up, between the bus ride to the stadium and literally kickoff. Somebody banged their knee on the bus, seats too close. These are big guys, banged, bust knee is basically what they call it. And so he's out with bust knee this week. He busted his knee? No. Bust knee. But I still expect somebody who is not on this list to not play it. I'm not, keep an eye on this guy. I'm just saying this is how it happens. Like, this is every single. We should go back and see it. Has somebody missed a game every single week that they're not on the list? Probably not. But the missing games are just so common now. I wonder how many games have been missed. Like, if you tally it up, because it's a lot.
It feels like it is an every week thing. And the other piece of this is the guys on this availability report are presumably the people who didn't travel. So maybe this is almost like the travel roster, and they've got 85 guys on scholarship and 73, I think, can travel. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that gets you mostly down to if you're not on this list, you undoubtedly traveled, and then after
We'll
that,
see.
and then we'll see. I think it will be interesting. Are we okay?
We're almost cool.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
A quick question that I wanted to throw in is somebody is looking to make a wager. Malachi saying, I need help. FanDuel is doing a parlay where Ohio State and Michigan plus 14 and Texas plus 7. Should I take it? $50 max bet to win 125.
Ohio State and Michigan plus 14. You mean minus 14? Okay. I was going to say, if you're getting 14 points with Ohio State and Michigan today, I would take that bet. Ohio State and Michigan giving 14, Texas giving 7. Quinn Ewers is supposed to play for Texas. I mean, the thing that gives me pause there is Texas and Oklahoma is just that series has just been a random number generator over the years where, the team that wins that game, the team that comes into that game looking terrible and hopeless feels like it wins that game 70% of the time.
Well, yes, and that is, I think that describes Oklahoma a bit in this, with Dylan Gabriel probably being out, and so they won't have him. Quinn Ewers, he's going to come back and light everything up. Not necessarily, but I think Hudson Card could win by 7, because I do think Texas is going to win that, and so Michigan is minus 14 at Indiana.
Well, I mean, I think I think that's a teaser. Yeah, I think
that's too complicated for me.
That's getting teased down, I think, because you're basically getting a touchdown, I think, on all of those. Boy, although I don't know if Texas is a 2-touchdown favorite. It just, I think if that one is not going to hit, it seems too easy to me. That feels too easy to me because Ohio State winning by 14 points feels like that's
right.
Very likely going to happen. Michigan winning by 14 points. Unless they just go in there and just do the Jim Harbaugh try and man ball it and try and scrape by and they win by 10. But I mean, Ohio State winning by 14 feels the most likely. Michigan winning by 14 feels pretty likely to me.
So the only bet here is Texas by 14 is what we're saying. By 7, yeah.
I mean,
I like that.
It all seems very logical. But if everything that seemed very logical happened, the casinos would not be quite nearly as nice because they would not have the money from all of the stuff that happened that was like, how did that happen?
Well, and the thing is, as soon as you throw a bet down on the Red River game, if you say I'm going Texas minus 7, Oklahoma's going to start out 21-0 in the first quarter.
Yeah. That game just
and then Texas will lose by like 4.
Yeah. That game just is constantly just defies expectations. Let's see. Do we want to have we picked up enough people that we should go back and do the recap of the availability report again? Let's touch on that real quick because we have picked up a bunch of people. No Mayan Williams today, no Jackson Smith and Jigba today, no Joe Royer, Evan Pryor, Taraji Mitchell, Mitchell Melton, Lloyd McFarquhar, Jordan Hancock, Tyler Friday, Cam Babb, or Amari Abor, Enoch Vermahi, game time decision. The Mayan Williams and Jackson Smith and Jigba, really the two notable names there in terms of people who are not necessarily going to be there. We talked earlier about the corners, and they've got the 4 healthy corners back. They've also got Cam Martinez is not on that list. Tanner McAllister is not on that list. Jansen Dunn is not on that list.
Yeah, the first time he's not been on the list for a while.
That safety room has been so banged up all year. Getting all those guys back now, I mean, there is not a single safety on that list. That feels like a big deal.
Yeah, you're talking about being the corners being as healthy as they've been. That's if everything is to be believed, which is the caveat we have to continue to throw in there. This is the healthiest the safeties have been when they've been deep and able to pick up the slack for each other when somebody would be missing. And now if they're all available, what do you get Cam Martinez involved a little bit more in this one? Find a place for him. I think there will probably be some opportunity for some dime defense in this game as Michigan State is looking to throw the ball and catch up or keep caught up. So that's good to have them both back because it would have been bad, and it may still be bad if they're not playing those two. And not, Ohio State's going to lose, but because the question coming in is if those two guys can't go, do you go with Kai Stokes again like they did last week in a pinch? Do you have Lathan Ransom practicing there all week to prepare for it? It's a position he's played before, doesn't actually care for it much, but would certainly do it in a game where he is needed. Now, if they don't have to worry about that and Jim Knowles can just do like the stuff he likes to do with Lathan Ransom and Ronnie Hickman and Josh Proctor in the back, and then Tanner McAllister and Cameron Martinez in the nickel. This is a good time for them to get back. If Tom, they are back.
If they are back, yes, that is the question. If they are back, and yeah, it is. I mean, that's a lot of guys in that room who have all been back. I mean, pretty much virtually every name you said there, who has been healthy consistently.
Ronnie
every
Hickman.
single game. Ronnie Hickman, Josh Proctor. Did Josh Proctor miss time this year?
No, he hasn't, but he was benched.
Yes, he was benched in the Notre Dame game, but I think he and Ronnie Hickman have been healthy the whole year. I think everyone else in that room has been banged up at various points.
As Lathan Ransom missed a game.
Lathan Ransom missed a game. Yep. Cam Martinez, Tanner McAllister missed time. Jansen Dunn missed time. It's like everyone but Donnie Nicky has been hurt this year. It is quite a, and for them to get those guys back, this is I think probably the benefit of them playing it a little safe with injuries this year is if you get these guys back, now you've got a healthy team going into some of the games where you're potentially going to need it. I don't know that this weekend is necessarily one where they're really going to need it, but you've got Iowa coming up, the offensive explosive attack of Iowa. When you go to Penn State, you're going to want to be healthy going to Penn State. That's going to be a big one. So
it's interesting when you look back at the safety situation last year for Ohio State, and like the one constant other than Ronnie Hickman was Bryson Shaw, who is now at USC, and I don't believe is playing at all. I don't know if he's been hurt, but you look for him in the stat sheet, and he's not there. And that was Ohio State's last line of defense last year because they didn't have the healthy depth that they do this year. And you're seeing the need for that depth and then the talent of that depth against opponents that really can't test Ohio State in the passing game. Now, can Michigan State, they're banged up a little bit as well. And that's why we talked about the fool's gold of the defense weeks ago, kind of as a joke, but it's going to be a while before Ohio State is tested with a legitimate passing game. And this might be coming into the season. I thought this would be the best passing game they faced in the regular season. And I think that'll be Michigan, Maryland, one of those two. But this will be a nice initial step. But I think Jaden Ballard or Jaden Reed is still like banged up, but playing basically for Michigan State. And no Jalen Naylor, he's off, gone. And so they're not quite as deep as they were last year. And of course, no Kenneth Walker. So that's also bad for them. It
is that there's a lot of not great news there. I did just pull up Bryson Shaw's stats. He has played in all 5 games and has a total of 2 tackles for USC. So yeah, just not playing. So yeah, that's I think the safety position, safe to say the safety position has improved from a year ago. Safe to say a lot of the Ohio State defense has improved from a year ago.
What would have happened if Josh Proctor doesn't go down last year?
Well, I think they're better.
Is Kerry Combs still the defensive coordinator?
I don't think so. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. That was not the only thing that went wrong last year.
You're right. No, but do they stay with that one high because they would have had the one high?
Maybe, but yeah,
I think there's still so many other issues though.
Yeah, I think
leverage issues.
Yes, the one safety was not the only one getting run over at Michigan. There were other there were other issues with the Ohio State defense last year, and you know how I know that because I talked to my good friend Ross Fulton about that a bunch last year. Ross Fulton gave us a lot of good insights on the defense and exactly what was going wrong last year. Ross Fulton was also here with us this year. He recorded a segment to sort of preview the Michigan State game today, share some of his insights on sort of what you can expect there, and we can talk a little bit about Michigan State when after Ross is done. But I'll let you hear a little bit from Ross right now, just a couple minutes of his thoughts on today's game.
Despite their recent losses, Michigan State isn't as bad, maybe as some people now think, at least according to the advanced computer statistics. I think they're 37th or so in SP+. So, they don't present a horrible matchup. They're also obviously, significantly overmatched by Ohio State. I mean, I think one of Michigan State's main problems this year has been defensively. They just their execution is very poor. Mel Tucker, his obviously background is working under Nick Saban, and he's tried to install that scheme, but they just have not succeeded in coverage, particularly like, in cover 3, like their corners, whether they're just because they're just so worried about them getting beat deep, they give like a ton of space, a ton of cushion. They don't get hands on people. They're susceptible to double teams, the point of attack. So it should be, similar to last year, Ohio State should be able to throw the ball at will, even if Jackson Spencer-Jigba is still out. I could see them again try to use a lot of hot pressures, which is 3 deep, 2 under, to try to, make CJ Stroud and the offensive line for Ohio State uncomfortable. But in the end, I don't see them as having enough. I mean, they do get offensively Jalen Reed back. And so I would, look for Michigan State. They'll try to spread it out to run the football, create some RPOs, and maybe, throw up some vertical shots to see if they can pick on Denzel Burke again, who's obviously struggling with the hand issue and being physical at the catch point. But at the end of the day, I mean, it should be, a game where it's not quite a name your score game, but I do think that Ohio State should win comfortably.
So yes, so there it is. Ross says Ohio State should win comfortably. I thought his thoughts on Denzel Burke were pretty interesting. That Denzel Burke has had just a weird season where he's not been getting burned, but he's been there giving up long pass plays. We do apparently have a super chat. We're going to finish our Denzel Burke thoughts, but let's go to the super chat.
Ryan Dawes, good morning. Other than half a dozen turnovers by OSU, what could Sparty do to win? Anything?
Good morning, Ryan, to you as well. Thank you. What?
Paint a tunnel on the side of a mountain and have the Ohio State bus drive into it,
right?
Wile E. Coyote style.
Although what would happen, they would just end up driving through the tunnel, and then Sparty would be like, "What? How could this be?" And then they would drive their own bus into it and crash it.
Yeah, I'm really struggling with the weather being fine.
Yeah.
It's like there are only a couple very narrow ways that this happens for Michigan State, and it's raining sideways and 38 degrees is one of them, and that is not the case today. It's going to be in the 50s and not super windy and no precipitation, and not even like fully blindingly sunny where the sun gets in your eye, you lose the ball in the sun. Like I really am struggling to come up with a scenario. You run down the stats and it's just Ohio State is in pretty much every facet of the game substantially better than Michigan State. And it's not like Michigan State has played this murderer's row of teams where it's just, they had to play the Alabama and Georgia and then the Kansas City Chiefs the last 3 weeks. So yes, of course, your number's bad. It's like, no, I mean, they haven't played anyone tremendous and they're still not good. This is a team that Ohio State beat by 49 last year, and that was probably a little bit of an outlier on the positive side for Ohio State as far as ways that game could have gone last year. But I don't think this is a substantially better Michigan State team than last year. Is this a substantially worse Ohio State offense than last year? No, probably not. Is this a substantially worse Ohio State defense than it was last year? No, definitely not. So it just to me feels like I outside of a whole bunch of turnovers or just, I mean, is there even another way without weather being a factor that they lose this game?
I don't think so. Food poisoning. Yeah, there you go, Kevin. This is just a very, very bad matchup for Michigan State because everything that Ohio State does well, Michigan State doesn't do well at all. And Michigan State, as you said, not a murderer's row, but they're in like the bottom third of every Big Ten category defensively and most of them offensively as well. So it's very just not a good match for Michigan State. So I don't know. You need so many turnovers, and if that's not in there, clearly they need to be Ohio State would need to be like 2 of 17 on third down or something like that, where Michigan State just has a tremendous third down stuff. But Ryan Day will probably get so tired of failing on third down that they'll start going on fourth down and getting it. So they'll probably be like 4 or 5 on fourth down. And then it's like, okay, no more third downs. We're just going to, go to the sticks on second down, whatever you do. There's just not many opportunities here for Michigan State to capitalize. They have to play a perfect game. And I could see Ohio State playing worse than they did last year, but winning by more because Ohio State shut it down at halftime last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you could talk about, well, boy, they just kick a bunch of field goals in the red zone. The problem is you look at the stats going into the game right now. Ohio State currently in red zone offense, number one in the country. They've scored on 100% of the possessions in red zone, 23 touchdowns, 2 field goals, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State in the red zone, 98th in the country. So they're basically scoring points on about 3 out of 4 trips to the red zone. So
Michigan State's kicker is 1 of 4.
Yeah, Michigan State's kicker 1 of 4 this year on field goals.
You know what? That might help Michigan State because they're not going to rely on the kicker. They need touchdowns. So, like, this might be a sneaky way. That's how Michigan State wins this. By trying to win with touchdowns and not trying to win with field goals, and Ohio State being forced to win with field goals. But, again, how many field goals? Because you're not going to keep Ohio State out of the end zone. So, if Ohio State scores a touchdown and, say, 6 field goals, 5 field goals, they score 22 points. Is Michigan State scoring 24? I mean, they could.
They could, but you know, I mean, we all have Michigan State scoring 17.
Mm-hmm.
So you get one more short field on a turnover. Okay, you get to 24. So yeah, I mean, theoretically, yes, but this just feels a lot like. Boy, I'm going to say the most cursed sentence I've ever said on this show before. This feels a lot like the 1998 game where it's like, think about all the stuff that would have to go wrong in order for that to happen. You know, that's just, you know, and then what are the odds of all of those things going wrong?
Yeah.
And is this Michigan State team, you know, as good as that Michigan State team? Like, yeah, probably. I mean, the point spread is essentially identical to that game. So you would have to have an incredible series of events go. You know, what's the children's book series? A series of unfortunate events.
Berenstain Bears.
Yes, Berenstain Bears. Yes.
Golden books.
Anyway, a series of unfortunate events. So you would have to have a series of just, you know, turnovers and bad bounces, and you know, that's just a lot that Michigan State would have to have all go exactly right for them and exactly wrong for Ohio State. And I just, you know, this feels more losable than the Rutgers game did, or more losable than, you know, either of the last 2 non-conference games. But I don't know how much of that is just me looking at the helmet and going, well, Michigan State, sometimes they do stuff.
Well, also, the way everybody is talking about this game is that Michigan State has no chance. And I think maybe that's another way, like if Ohio State is believing that, that's a way that they could get tripped up and make this closer. And then if it's a game late in the third quarter, it's a game for the rest of the way out. And so anybody can win that, lose that. And we've seen Ohio State take teams lightly. It hasn't really happened this year, but we've seen that in the past where this should not be a third quarter game with Tulsa, you know, that mm-hmm. sort of stuff. So, you know, just an off day by CJ Stroud. I don't think the running game, well, you know, I was gonna say, I don't think the running game will slump, but not having Mayan Williams, you know, he's been seeing the field better than Travian Henderson. So maybe the running game won't be as effective. And, you know, but you still have this pass defense from Michigan State where, you know, do they do what Rutgers did and change their defense and just force Ohio State to patiently move the ball down the field? And will CJ Stroud be more apt to do that this week, knowing that, yes, he graded out a champion last week, but it was not his best game.
Yeah, that feels like that's probably the smart play for Michigan State, is to not give the easy stuff to Ohio State and make them really earn it. But I just, you know, even there, you know, that worked to a point for Rutgers, but it only worked so much. You know, speaking of Ryan Dawes, and frankly, when I heard a Ryan Dawes super chat, I thought, I know what this is going to be about. And then it wasn't, and it was a little disappointing. But Tony, I'm just going to hand Kevin a $20 bill after the show. And so this is my super chat, Kevin. Tony, buddy, how'd you sleep last night?
Well, Tom, thank you for asking, first of all.
I asked because I care. How about you as a person?
So for everybody that is not aware, Ryan Dawes purchased a fantastic air mattress for our cot of shame usage. And boy, it came in very handy in this room, as we found out when we got here, where there was one bed, one couch, and one floor. And so the good news is that air mattress was fantastic, much better than a floor. Even the Michigan sheets that were I don't want to say nice touch, they were a touch. Very, very thoughtful. A lot of thought certainly went into that. It was a full of thought gift So thank you for that,
Trying to get a
Ryan.
picture of it.
But yeah, I mean, and as I said before the show, I only fell out of it once, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Save it for the show.
So yes, all in all, this is my first experience on an air mattress. This is much easier, Tom, than what we've normally had to do when we bring the water mattress along on the road trips, and we're just filling it and filling it and filling it from the kitchen faucet.
The water bed, the black lights. It's a lot. It's a lot when we go on these road trips. I'm glad we decided to simplify
The
things.
DJ.
Yes, simplify things with the air mattress, smoke machine. I mean, it's a lot. So, and then there's so much stuff that then someone has to sleep in the bathtub, and it's a whole thing. So this is way better.
Way
So
better.
thank you to
Way
Ryan
better,
for his very thoughtful gift. From the Ohio State point of view, no Mayan Williams, no Jackson Smith-Njigba. I feel like you sort of know what you're going to get as far as the receivers go today, where it's going to be the Marvin Harrison and Emeka Ibuka show, unless they really make a point to try and take one of those guys away. And then in that case, it'll be the Julian Fleming show or the
Cade Stover.
The Cade Stover show. Have you seen the nickname Farm Gronk?
Yes, I have.
That is a tremendous nickname.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
I like that one.
Tom,
let me ask you, how do you feel about my bold prediction of Travian Henderson outrushing Mayan Williams by 25 yards this week?
I think, given that it's basically already happened before the game, I think I really have to question exactly how bold that is and whether that should even be allowed. I mean,
But you allowed it.
Well,
you took your finger off the checker. Next question.
Sometimes I do things that are just being nice. This is obviously one of those times. So this is you getting a question right. I mean, very clearly, I was just being nice. So that's all right. Lesson learned. Most important thing, though, Tony, even if you do win next week,
bye week,
off week, yeah, no cot of shame next week, my friend.
That's fine. Hey, it worked well. Much more comfortable than the floor or doubling up on a couch.
Yes, definitely. So, in the run game, obviously this is a big Travian Henderson game. You would certainly think, how early do we see Dallin Hayden today? Because this is, if you've got really two healthy scholarship running backs at this point, and it feels like you're very likely to see him before halftime, right?
Yeah, you're not going to just run Travian the entire first half. So, third series, fourth series, it depends. Now they kept Mayan Williams out there the entire first half last week, if I recall. Like Dallin Hayden,
I think so. You saw Dallin Hayden, but I think it was like third quarter and not.
Yeah, but I don't know that just Travian Henderson coming off of whatever he's coming off of.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to run him now, he may only have 7 carries in the first half because they're throwing the ball 60 yards down the field and scoring. So, it will depend on that. But, if he has like 12 carries in the first half, I'm interested to see exactly how he responds, because I wonder how he is feeling in terms of people have forgotten about me. And so now I want to remind people of who I am, the preseason Heisman candidate, the preseason All-American. People can move on from somebody very quickly in college sports or all sports. And so this is an opportunity for him to remind people that I am still here, still pretty good. And, what was it, 189 yards for Mayan Williams last week?
Yep.
Maybe we see something similar. I even said it this week at some point, Travian Henderson is going to have one of those games where 160 yards, Mayan Williams is going to have 80 yards or whatever, where he's going to outpace Mayan. And, I think there's going to be every opportunity. What was the kind of the over under for Travian in this game, 82.5 yards or something like that?
Yeah. That feels like a gimme, basically, if he stays healthy. Travian Henderson this year has played in only 4 of the 5 games, 50 carries, 318 yards, 6.4 yards per carry, which is, not far off of what he did last year. He was 6.8 last year, 6.4 this year. Only 3 touchdowns and, 318 yards in 4 games. That's just shy of 80 yards a game. It's it's fine, but it hasn't been what I think there were big expectations for him this year, and just a combination of a little bit of injury and a little bit of the emergence of Mayan Williams and a little bit of the fact that they are going to throw the ball a decent amount. And Ryan Day has talked about the fact that they get a little pass happy at times. All of that is sort of added up to, Travian Henderson, Travian Henderson, almost halfway through the season. We were looking at him as potentially a 1,000-yard guy, and he's on pace for if they're they're 5 games in, so we're talking about tripling his numbers. So 950 something. That's not that feels like, boy, he's been so quiet this year, but then he could potentially, if he just does what he's done so far,
exactly,
he's at 950 something yards.
Yeah, the running game is much better than last year, and so that's great for everybody. But yeah, it's the Mayan Williams thing that has impacted Travian Henderson. I'm not going to say it's impacted him negatively. It's just he doesn't have to carry the ball 20 times, and now he can. We've seen he may have had one game of 20 carries this year, but they can finally do what they've been talking about, where you can ride a hot hand. You don't have to bring one guy in each series. Like, this feels so much different than 2018. This feels much more organic. You're not like, okay, well, now it's J.K. Dobbins' turn, and now it's Mike Weber's turn. And I think that's because both are being successful, where it's like, well, that didn't work, so now you got to try the next one. And it's like, when it works, when they both work, it's much easier. It just flows much better. You don't even hardly notice, like, oh, this is Mayan Williams' drive, because,
Yeah, it's not, if one is working and the other's not, well, that solves the problem for you. If both are working, that's great. If neither is working, well, that's a different problem. That was kind of the 2018 issue, was just there was constantly just back and forth, and it would just no one got in a rhythm. This year, everyone's been successful enough, and I think a lot of that's the line. The line has been so much better this year that it's like rotating quarterbacks. Like, you can rotate quarterbacks and use them in different spots, and it's like that can be a really effective thing if you've got 2 good quarterbacks. If you have 2 bad quarterbacks, it's just like, well, I don't know, let's try the other guy because this isn't working. Speaking of Rutgers, Nebraska pulled one out last night. Rutgers up 13-0, and then what happened, Tony? Not a great night, I would say, overall in the sporting world in the New York metropolitan area last night.
What, really? It wasn't. But yeah, no. Now teams that have played Ohio State are 0-5 the week after playing Ohio State, with Rutgers going down to Nebraska. Nebraska scoring 14 unanswered points to win the game. 13 points. They said it was insurmountable. Turns out it was just surmountable enough. So it's just it was mountable. Yes. I am interested to see then. Okay, so who does Michigan State, Tom, play next week, to see who they are going to lose to? And we will find out exactly who the Spartans will lose to next week.
Wisconsin. So it's going to be a challenge. This is really going to put the theory to the test.
Hey, it did this. I mean, it put the theory to the test yesterday. So, so Michigan State, is that in East Lansing? It
is in East Lansing.
Wow, this is going to be.
And then a week off, and then the trip down to Ann Arbor.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Get healthy, boys.
I think that is the most Michigan State way for this to play out is lose to Ohio State today, lose to Wisconsin next week off, and just out of nowhere, just flying down from the rafters. Yeah, flying down from the rafters to beat Michigan out of nowhere in Ann Arbor.
You know how you make that $95 million contract worth it? You beat Michigan. That's it.
That's. I mean, that is really the measure of a successful season in East Lansing. Is just, did they beat Michigan? Great. Then
it was worth it.
That they will forgive. They will forgive a 4-8 season if one of the 4 is Michigan, and a 4-8 season where they beat Michigan, honestly, I think is preferable to most people in East Lansing compared to an 8-4 season where they don't.
Like a 4-8 season where they beat Michigan and Michigan ends up 11-1 in the regular season. And you're like, let's extend Mel Tucker another 7 years, and it's like now they're like 17 years, $180 million for beating Michigan a couple of times.
All right, so this is our first road trip of the season. When we do these road trips, Tony, what do? We get in the car, we drive. That's an important part of a road trip. We stay in a hotel, also important of a road trip.
Right.
Tony, sometimes you got to eat.
Sometimes we do, and we try to find a nice place, a classy joint where we can experience something for the first time. And we did that yesterday. Where, Tom?
Grand River Brewing, and in lovely Jackson, Michigan. And Michigan, you don't necessarily think of Michigan as having like a signature food in the way like there's you go to Philly, you have to have a cheesesteak, or you go to New York, you got to have the New York style pizza. You go to Chicago, you've got to have the New York style pizza. There isn't necessarily a signature dish for Canada. But here's for Michigan. But however, Tony, Michigan is pretty Canada adjacent. So you got to try one of my favorite dishes.
Yes.
And now I think maybe one of your favorite dishes, poutine.
Poutine, yes, indeed.
So let's let you watch the very first episode of our new dining segment, Hungry Huddle.
I went with the steak because I'm not buying.
All right, it is a new football season, a first road trip of a new football season, and Tony Gerdeman, that can only mean one thing. We have to eat food. And we have to put it on video. And due to gestures vaguely, we need a new name for this segment. Tony, I have just the name.
Oh, really? What is it?
Hungry Huddle. Get it because we work for BuckeyeHuddle.com?
And hungry.
Yeah. So my impression is, if that's okay with everyone as far as a name, I think it works. Hungry Huddle, yep. So let's go inside. We're going to eat a bunch of marbles. I think it's going to be great. No, is that Hungry? Oh, sorry, that's Hungry Hippos, differently. Okay. All right, so no marbles. Instead, we are here, Michigan State trip for Ohio State. We're here at Grand River Brewing. Tony, I mean, as the name implies, I'm sure they have beer inside. But more importantly, you know what else they have inside?
River?
Yes, they have a river. It's going to be great. We're going to go for a swim. It's like 40 degrees. It's going to be tremendous. We're going to get hungry hypothermia. I think more importantly, though, Tony, they have poutine. Have you had poutine before?
I have never had poutine, and it has all of my favorite food groups, which is French fries, gravy, and cheese. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, Michigan, rather famously, is Canada adjacent. So poutine is a Canadian food. You typically think of it as like a Montreal thing. Ohio State does not have Montreal on the schedule this year, nor Toronto. They're all, none of them in the league. So we're gonna this is as close as we're getting to Canada this year. So we're gonna check out some poutine inside Grand River Brewing. Personally, Tony, I can't wait.
I am excited about this. You had me at poutine.
All right, let's get it. One, two, three. I did. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Can I grab you guys anything else?
No, this is good. Here we go.
First bite.
Fries, cheese, bacon, gravy. So I've ordered a pork shoulder, some mac and cheese, some coleslaw, the bread, butter, whatever that is, but got some barbecue sauce on this. Looking forward to it. Pulled pork, always a good choice. Tom goes to a barbecue joint once you get stupid wings.
Yes, here I am in the barbecue capital of America, Central Michigan. So yes, I got wings with bone in, like an adult, because that's what adults do. They eat wings with their bones in. So yes, should be a delightful, poutine, some wings. It feels a little football-y, maybe a little Canadian football, but it feels pretty football to me. Very nice full meal here.
I went with the steak because I'm not buying.
Tom, I am spent. That was really, really good. It's a lot of food. Pulled pork, always hits the spot. Good barbecue sauce. I enjoyed my meal immensely. I didn't eat all of it because I couldn't. There was too much food, Tom. You only had wings and a little bit of poutine. What did you think?
I thought I ate all of my food like a grown-up, because that's what grown-ups do. They eat their food. Yes, the poutine was delightful. I have had a good bit of poutine over the years. This was towards the top of the scale. Very, very good. the bacon on top, I mean, what does bacon not make better? The answer is nothing. So the bacon on top kind of put nice touch. The wings were a little different where they didn't sauce them. They just gave you the wings and then you sauced them yourself. That was a little different, but they had bones in them like a grown-up. So it was a delightful meal, just enough, not too much, just enough. Healthy eating, Tony. That's my watchword for the 2022 season. Can be a lot of poutine and a lot of healthy eating.
Michigan wings are different than New Jersey wings, where you are not allowed to sauce your own wings. Somebody will come in and sauce your wings for you because of the unions. So it's different here, and you did a good job by making sure that you sauced your wings. My pulled pork was really, really good. The sauce was good. I did not finish all of my mac and cheese. I had to save room for the pulled pork. Cornbread was okay. It was fine. The water, fantastic. Ice water always hits the spot. Keeps you hydrated. But overall, very, very good meal. I enjoyed it. I will be back in 2 years. What did you think?
My steak was pretty good. You come to a beer place and you order a steak, you kind of get what you get there. I had fries with my meal that I didn't need after poutine, which are fries. So that was pretty dumb on my part. But
how many of your cheese curds did you eat with your steak and your fries after eating your poutine, which was fries and cheese and gravy?
I think I gave Tony more of my curds than I ate there, but it's fine because I had a good chance to hang out with Tom and Tony. I couldn't sit there and see my facial expressions. Yeah. But, it was a very good meal. I really enjoyed it. The beer was fantastic. Only had one or two. We're taking a ride share. It's all good at this point. Or 3 or 4. They're holding up fingers behind me. Tom couldn't sauce his own wings, and Tony couldn't pull his own pork.
I don't think anyone's ever said that about Tony before, in fairness. I don't think that's ever... There's been many criticisms of Tony over the years. I don't think that's ever been one of them.
On that note, we're going to thank you for joining us here for Hungry Huddle. I'm Kevin Noon, joined by Tony Gerdeman, Tom Orr, here at Grand River Brewing in Jackson, Michigan. We'll see you again very soon.
Tony, after all those cheese curds last night, is it okay if I call you Tony Gerdeman?
No, Tom, it is not. Next question.
Tony, have you seen the Ohio State availability report?
I did. Let's talk about that, Tom, rather than anything else at this moment.
All right, so we are going to hit on this one more time. We'll go through our game picks and all that, and then we'll let you guys get on with your day. 2 big pieces of news today for Ohio State availability report. No Jackson Smith-Njigba. That's not really a big surprise. No Mine Williams. That's a little bit of a surprise. Not great for Ohio State, but they do have Travian Henderson back. You've got pretty much everyone back in the secondary at this point. Outside of Jordan Hancock, you got the whole corner room is back. You've got every safety back. Again, if this is to be believed, which your mileage may vary, but to not have those guys on this list, that is a significant, overall, yes, you would love to have Mine Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you would love to have Jackson Smith-Njigba. But to me, honestly, on the whole, this feels like good news for Ohio State. I think in a lot of ways that a lot of those guys who have been on this list are now off of it.
And it speaks to the depth on offense where you're missing your best receiver, your leading rusher. And it's like, yeah, but look, at least they got a bunch of defensive guys back, perhaps. And so, that's really what I think the important area for the Buckeyes right now is having the defense and the secondary, because they were getting thin without the nickels. And so if the nickels are back and you've got more options at corner, I think that is a net positive when you just take the overall availability report into account.
So let's run through predictions now. I think we've had a good conversation about some of the reasons that this might not be a great matchup for Michigan State. And I think the score predictions reflect that. Last night we went in ascending order of score predictions. So we're going to go in descending order for today. I'll start Ohio State 49, Michigan State 17. It just feels like a game where I don't think that the Spartans can stop the Ohio State pass attack. I don't think the Spartans can stop the Ohio State run attack. That's a problem. And if they really sell out to stop one, the other is going to be wide open. So it feels like Michigan State can choose how they want to lose this game, but they're not going to have a lot of choice in terms of the result of the game.
Yeah, I went with 45-17, and I feel like this is kind of conservative offensively, knowing what the Ohio State offense is capable of and knowing what the defense at Michigan State isn't capable of. And so, I mean, it could be 59-17 instead of 45-17 or 49-17. But I also feel pretty good about the Ohio State defense keeping up with the Michigan State offense. I don't think you're going to shut them out. You never want to pick a shutout, as you saw last week against Rutgers. But as I said, just not a good matchup for Michigan State. I think they'll get some points, as everybody does, but there'll be a situation, point in the game where Ohio State scores on like 3 straight drives, and it's over.
Yeah, and that could come. I mean, last year that felt like that came on the first 3 drives of the game. I think they scored on their first 6 or 7 drives of the game last year. I don't know that they'll be quite that explosive this year, but yeah, this being 21-7 at the end of the first quarter would not be all that surprising, I don't think. Kevin, what was your prediction?
I was a little more conservative, saying 42-17 as Mayan Williams, Jackson Smith, and Jigba and myself were out like using a hammer on our knees, so we couldn't play this week. But in all seriousness, I like Ohio State to run away with it. I think it could be much more than 42. But, first road trip, strange things happen. Not that this series has been close for the last couple of years, but, maybe I just am a little shell-shocked from some of the disappointments of the past.
Yeah, you go back through, 2016 was the last time this game was closer than 20 points. And there have been a couple in there that have been much more than 20 points. 2018 was the closest one. That was the last time you and I were up here.
Yeah. Ohio
Ohio State has been up there since then, but that was that really, really cold day where Ohio State just knew Michigan State had absolutely nothing to offer and just got to 26 points and said, all right, and we're done here, and just spent the rest of the day punting them down inside the 5-yard line. But there have been, 2017, that Michigan State game, that was the week after the Iowa game. And it was like, whoa, boy, what are you going to see from Ohio State? And this is a pretty good Michigan State team. And I actually picked Michigan State to win that game. And then I think it ended up 48-3 or something like that. And, and then, the last couple of years, the last time they were up here was 52-12, I think. And then last year, 56-7. There have been a bunch of games where this was not just Ohio State won, but these games have been like completely non-competitive. I don't think you're going to see quite that level of a defeat today, but it doesn't feel like this is a game where you're going to be sitting there in the third quarter and looking and the game win percentage graph is going to be anything other than 98 or 99% Ohio State.
I think it's pretty telling that we're all given kind of the same score, a blowout, and also being like, I'm being a little conservative on this pick. And it's like, well, you just picked him by 4 touchdowns. Like, yeah, I know. I said conservative.
Yeah, and Ohio State is 27-point favorite, so you're right in that range, and that's about right. And a lot of the advanced analytic systems have this one kind of in that like 40 to 22 kind of range, I think, something like that. So you're probably somewhere in that range, but this is just a team that it's just not a good matchup for Michigan State.
No. Kevin, we got some questions?
We do. Yeah, mine is 27. I just looked. Any Pats 11, do you think most of the guys out today would play if we had Penn State or Michigan?
I do. Maybe not Jackson because the hamstring thing, or maybe he would. But like, this is an opportunity where if you're going to do something, have a procedure, whatever, you've got this week and next week to recover from. So I think, 75% of the guys who have missed time wouldn't have missed time if it was a Michigan or a Penn State. That's where I am on that.
Mm-hmm. Next
question. Buckeye 01, more screens for Trey today?
I mean, you really couldn't have fewer screens for Travian Henderson. He's just not been really a factor in that passing offense for whatever reason. And you've seen him over the years be a factor there. Didn't he have a real long one against Minnesota last year in that first game?
Basically to win the game.
Yeah.
Seal it.
And then, but yeah, just nothing this year. I'm just pulling up his receiving yardage.
Yeah, he's not been very involved. Certainly not like screens, maybe some outlets, but not nearly as much, because he was, what did he catch, like 26 passes or something like last year, 23, 24 passes last year. So yeah, he was part of the passing game.
Yeah, he has no receptions this year.
So there you go. Tom, my bold prediction, he does something he has not done once this year.
Matches or exceeds his season reception total today. Yes, I think that's I'll tell you what, I'll make that one of mine if I let you keep your
No. Over under say 52.5 yards rushing for Dallin Hayden today.
52.5. I'm going to say over, because I think they're going to be ahead by enough. And with Mayan Williams banged up now, you don't want to probably take a chance with Travian Henderson. So you're probably not. No, I don't think you're seeing 27 carries from Travian Henderson today. So I think you're going to see a good bit of Dallin Hayden today. So yeah, I will take the over on that.
Jeffrey Blue, this Michigan grad hopes you beat the snot out of Spartan.
Should Ohio State tank this game just to upset Michigan fans?
Yeah, it is. This is one of these like in-state rivalries where it doesn't have the pub that Alabama Auburn does, but just I lived up here for 3.5 years at one point, and you work with Michigan people, you work with Michigan State people, which means Michigan and Michigan State people are working with each other. Every office in this state, you have to live with it every day. If your team loses a game they probably shouldn't have to Michigan State last year, and really the biggest black mark on Michigan's record last year was that loss to Michigan State. And I think that's one that they really they can't stand. They can't stand losing. Bo Schembechler lost to Michigan State his first year as Michigan's head coach in 1969. And, everyone remembers the Ohio State win, obviously, that year for them. But I got it when I lived up here and worked up here. Bo Schembechler worked at the TV station that I was working at, so I got a chance to talk to him. And he I'm sure this is a story he's told to people other than me. This was probably not the first time he told the story, but he basically said, he wasn't really thinking about Michigan State that much as the head coach of Michigan, and he lost to Michigan State, and he was basically told, like, yeah, don't do that again. Like, do not do that again. So yeah, it's my second favorite rivalry in college football. It's fun, and there's healthy hate there and some unhealthy hate. And my favorite part of that rivalry is Michigan State just storing stuff up all year and just pulling it. And it's just they store stuff up all year and they throw it all in that game, because that game means so much to Michigan State.
DK, why is this game at 4 instead of 3:30? Did someone finally figure out that 3:30 games never start anywhere close to 3:30?
Yeah, why is this game at 4 instead of 3:30? Yeah, I think you're right. People finally figured out that 3:30 window is getting tougher and tougher to hit for these noon games. So yeah, there's no reason to be as rigid, and I'm still get annoyed when I record something, a noon game on a DVR, and it's like 12 to 3. It's like there's no way.
Mm-hmm.
You even have to throw an hour on to the 3.5 hour windows, and it's because you don't know if that 30 minutes extra is going to be enough. But at 4 o'clock, I don't mind it so much, I guess.
And just logistically, where is Kirk Herbstreit right now?
He is in Lawrence, Kansas.
And where's Kirk Herbstreit going to be at 4 o'clock today?
East Lansing, Michigan.
So just logistically, normally he's doing the primetime game. And
so is this all for Herbstreit?
I truthfully don't know the answer to that question, but it would not surprise me if that was at least a factor in the decision, because yeah, he's not flying commercial. There's probably a private jet sitting waiting for him on the, at whatever the Lawrence Municipal Airport is, or whatever the closest airport is, and it's going to come, land in East Lansing. It's not flying, driving to Kansas City and flying into Detroit Metro or anything like that. But it's still, there's a bunch of stuff that can go wrong there. So
I think he has to take a crop duster into Topeka, and then Topeka to Detroit, and then an Uber to East Lansing.
No, and then it connects in Atlanta because it's Delta. Everything goes through Atlanta.
Yeah, so I think there's probably some combination of those factors, but the Herb Street thing, I don't think we're necessarily all waiting specifically for Kirk Herbstreit, but I would bet that's at least a side benefit to it for them.
Ronnie P. 77. Do you think playing on natural grass impacts Ohio State?
Well, Ryan Day said this week they will. The question is, will playing on natural grass and hurt or impact Ohio State? How will it impact them? Day said that they've been practicing on the grass quite a bit this week, so they are ready for that. He said it's obviously a more forgiving turf, which this team might need right now. So yeah, they've been practicing. They've been practicing on it. Ohio State has 3 grass fields. I'm trying to figure it out.
I think 2. I think they've got 2 and 2. Yeah, 2 grass, 2 turf,
so
outdoor fields.
Yeah, they have enough room for the offense, enough room for the defense, and so they've been working on that all week.
Buckeye 01, could we beat MSU with Mccord?
Yes. Could Ohio State beat Michigan State with Kyle Mccord? Yes. I think they could. I mean, that Michigan State defense is very bad. And frankly, I think Kyle McCord is probably, we haven't seen a lot of him, so this is a little bit going on faith, but the rest of the offense is so good. And what we've seen of Kyle McCord has been pretty good. I think what is the line for you where, we'll do the Price is Right mountain climber game. Like where does the mountain climber fall off where you start to wonder maybe they are in some danger if they don't have CJ Stroud. Michigan State,
no,
Iowa.
I think they can score enough.
Maryland.
Well, I mean, that gets to be a little bit of a shootout, but I still think you're playing against Maryland's defense, so you're going to be okay.
Penn State.
I think Kyle McCord being a Pennsylvania guy, like he'd be looking forward to that one. So I was like, I think that what would the line be on that? Is that like Penn State +3? How close does it get there? Because I still think Ohio State's going to be favored because they have the defense, they have all the skill, and all you're doing is asking Kyle McCord to hand the ball off or distribute the ball.
I don't know that. I don't think that's that close. I don't think that. I mean, because what's an Ohio State Penn State line right now? I mean, 13. Yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud's good. Is CJ Stroud worth 10 points in the line? I mean, you don't generally see lines move by that much with it, unless it's a one-man show. You take Antoine Randall off some of those late 90s Indiana teams, like, okay, that's one thing. But this is not a one-man show for the Ohio State offense or the Ohio State team. So
our own Alex Lightman correcting Tony Todd. He's a Jersey guy, Tony. He just played in PA.
A lot of these Philly people are also, they're basically, Philly people are New Jersey people. They're all the same, basically. Like,
and he also eats pork roll, not Taylor ham.
He is south of the pork roll Taylor ham line. Yes, the pork roll Taylor ham line is right around Rutgers. North of there, you're going to hear people call it Taylor ham. South of there, you're going to hear people call it pork roll.
Right, and we got the Taylor ham sandwich at that place in New Jersey.
With the bagels.
You're just being spiteful now because Alex is correcting you.
Oh, I wasn't. I don't listen to Alex. Just so you know, never listen to Alex. Alex who? That's my motto. Alex who? R.I.P.
Two more left in the queue. Jeff Hines. No mine equals me screaming at the TV. Don't trust Henderson on third down. Unfortunately, Day will run him on anything under 3rd and 5.
I don't know that I agree with at least some of that. Travian Henderson has been good. He is not quite as effective a short yardage back as Mayan Williams, but that's based on Mayan Williams being Mayan Williams sized and Travian Henderson being Travian Henderson sized. I also think that Ryan Day is aware of the fact that Travian Henderson is not quite as good a short yardage back as Mayan Williams probably. But even so, Travian Henderson is perfectly fine in short yardage. I don't, and I think a lot of the time stuff, he has not been called on that much this year. So you're probably remembering a lot of stuff from last year where they were not good in short yardage no matter who was the running back. And I think some of that was the offensive line and some of that was, play calling. And some of that is just CJ Stroud not running the ball. And that's something that who was it that talked about that? It was Tony Alford talked about that this week, as not having the threat of the quarterback run changes that run game a little bit for you. So, but yeah, I don't really have any big concerns about Travian Henderson. I don't expect him to be to turn into the greatest short yardage back of all time, but he's also, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think he may leave some yards on the field on some carries, but will also get others that mine wouldn't necessarily get. So it evens out a bit. And as you said, he's averaging 6.4 yards a carry, which he'll take that every single year.
Buckeye 01. Coaches balancing tougher practices with injury concerns. Can you push through toughness without practicing tougher?
Can you push toughness without practicing tougher during the week? And the coaches have also talked about Jim Knowles talked about this with the corners and the defensive backs, how you need to play depth because it's a long season. You don't want to wear guys out. So that's why I think you can do that, but also you give a guy a week off. It's like and maybe that enables you to play tougher, knowing like, well, you'll get a break. It is an interesting thing though, where Ryan Day is preaching toughness, and you have former players now seeing this go on, where guys miss games and they're calling them softer, and it's like, this is not how we used to do it. This is not how I did it. This is obviously the wrong way to do it. It's 15. They're preparing for 15 games. They want to be at their top for that 15th game, not necessarily the 8th game.
Right. You're not, last year's season, they won a lot of games in the middle of the year and won a lot of games by a lot of points. No one cares that they beat Michigan State 56-7 last year because of what happened the next week. So I think Ryan Day is coaching to the challenges that are on his schedule, and they have not faced a lot of those challenges yet. And that's just sort of the reflection of the reality of life in the Big Ten this year, which is there are a few good teams, and there's a lot of just kind of like, wow, this team is deeply flawed in some way, and generally in ways that Ohio State is pretty well equipped to take advantage of. So yeah, and as far as players talking about, well, back in my day, Tony, how many generations in a row do you think it has people have said, kids today not as yada 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 something something uphill both ways in the snow to school, yada 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 something something. I think you can go back to biblical times and go through the begats, and it's like Abraham begat, and then
Methuselah's out here 900 years talking about back in his day. It's like, enough. All right, we've all heard it. You've been around forever. We know the stories. Enough.
Enough, Hezekiah.
Yes.
We're caught up on questions, so whatever.
All right. Want. I think it's time to wrap it up.
We gotta head to the game.
Head to the game. So thank you guys all for joining us. We'll be at the stadium plenty early today. We got to go pick up a parking pass and then head over to the stadium. We'll try and get you a nice little sampling of life around campus, perhaps on our way in. It is a very pretty campus. Always a nice place to visit, and so looking forward to that. We'll have obviously complete coverage at BuckeyeHuddle.com today, and then afterwards we'll have our usual post-game show as well. YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We'll be here, obviously, the same place you're watching this right now, actually, come to think of it. So why don't you hit the thumbs up button on this video, and then make sure you hit that bell so you will get notified when we do our post-game show, because that should be a lot to talk about. We'll have plenty of time to do it and break it down for you, and post-game interviews and all the usual fun stuff. Internet willing, Wi-Fi willing, universe willing.
Yeah, area to record or to stream from willing. It'll be fun.
Oh, the mysteries of the first road game of the season. Always a delight. Can't wait.
Looking forward to it.
That will do it for us. Thank you guys all for joining us. We do truly appreciate it, and we'll see you guys after the game.